morning. Welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it's the 11th day of April 2025 today. And oh my goodness, once again, so much stuff going on. It's just crazy out there. What do you think about the tariffs and the pausing of the tariffs? We're going to ask lots of questions today. And I have a lot of, ideas about what was actually going on with Gretchen Whitmer in the Oval Office. And all I can say is right now, if you're talking to President Trump or he's talking to you, it's probably a come to Jesus moment or meeting. And I really think that she was in the walk of shame. But I also think that President Trump handled it very, very well. Because you know what? It comes down to, in our communications, do we want to be right or do we want to hit the goal and win the war? The war we're in an undeclared war, but we're in a war for sure. It's an information war. It's a irregular warfare type of a war. And do we want to unite the country and stand as one nation, or do we want to keep on going with this crazy fighting over nada, nothing, and it's all engineered? Well, I'm pretty happy that he offered an olive branch, though at first I was like, I don't think she did that good of a job, but it's just me. I'm not really a fan of treason, but which she committed, but I don't think he was actually talking to her. I was thinking he was talking to her supporters. But we're going to bring the Pamela on and see what everybody thinks. Morning, guys. How you doing?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, tell me about the shirt you have on.
Okay. See, Golf of America, supporting President Trump. And I got it from this wonderful person I know. Very kind and friendly. And we were dancing in the streets when we got them.
And I'll post the videos later. So I was down visiting David and Jeanne and in Florida for a couple of days. And we're actually very good friends. And so David's dad, Michael, is the most adorable person on the entire planet. I'm going to tell you that right now. So I made up my mind that I was going to buy him a t-shirt, the Gulf of America t-shirt. This guy is boss level patriot. I'm going to tell you. All right. Yeah. Like he is a complete supporter of Elon Musk, loves Elon and President Trump and such. And so we went out one night and I bought t-shirts as just a gift for David, Jeanne, and Michael. And Michael started dancing in the street with a t-shirt when we all started dancing. And then people were watching this and they were just so filled with joy. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And thank you so much. Very much appreciated. I have to get it signed by you and put in a frame.
Oh, thank you. That was so fun.
It was funny that a lot of people were clapping and dancing with us or looking at us and smiling and happy. But then on the way home, unfortunately, we ran into a snowflake.
Disrespectful.
Yes.
So I'm sorry.
Talking around about Donald Trump, our president, to somebody in their 20s is not risky, but is very disrespectful, according to this young lady, or she, her, him, them, whatever she might call herself.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, but I could probably do a comedy routine actually on people that are doing this disrespectful.
Yeah, that'd be good TikTok.
What the heck is disrespectful? It's being, I would have grounded my kids at a minimum for like 20 years to talk to somebody who was in their 80s and act like they're all that in a bag of chips. Are you kidding me? Y'all that.
Since when
knowledge there? I'm sorry.
Is it disrespectful to talk about the president of the United States?
Yes, it is.
It's unbelievable the way these people think. It's so upsetting that there's still I don't know how large the group is, but I know that there's a lot of them are young that just hate Trump and Musk and everything going on. It's like they're oblivious to what they're doing to help every American, including themselves.
Yeah, and
in another world, they would call them a Karen, but we don't do that here.
Why, Karen?
We're making Karen's great again. That's what we're doing.
That's right. I need that on a t-shirt.
That's a great T-shirt.
I think I can make that happen.
I like that.
See, this is what you do when you run for governor and you like are completely ostracized by the establishment and totally ignored and no help whatsoever. You buy T-shirts, you buy a T-shirt press, you make your own transfers, and then you are able to put anything on them you want. Which, guess what, guys? That would be me.
I don't know, though. I mean, the Gulf of America seems like a totally inappropriate name for the Gulf that is, you know, the big Gulf that is encompassed by the continent of North Mexico.
Well, that's funny. How about North America, Central America, South America? I guess we missed this whole point here, didn't we?
Yeah. How did that happen?
Why should it be Gulf of Mexico when you got when you got North America and South America? I think he's absolutely accurate.
I think we should rename the Atlantic Ocean the American Ocean. No?
Well, you know what? Greenland. I mean, this is actually so funny. He's got people. He is running space inside everyone's heads. Everybody's heads. Now we're going to see if the Trump supporters are actually going to stay strong and stay with him, or they're going to go, I can't believe he had Whitmer in the Oval Office. I can. What's he going to do? You know, he's trying to unite this nation.
I think it's submission. Submission.
It's submission too, but his voters, you can see she's already submitted. But but her voters, how, you know, when I'm training horses or doing something and somebody is learning a better behavior or whatever, you make that bar low for them to step over it to have a relationship. You don't sit there and go, I knew I was right, boom, 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 and keep, you know, blasting them in the face. It's like, lower the bar, making it easy for them to walk in and be friends, you know? Being right.
Dude, the look on her face. Donna, the look on her face. Wow. She was not happy that she was there.
Yep.
Someone had like a gun to her head or something.
I feel sorry for those people, though. That's how I am about it, because what a miserable life that must be. I'm having fun.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, like to live with such anger and hate. And, well, I'm a little frustrated. I'll admit that, but not that way. You know, like these poor people that have to live this, I don't know, miserable existence because they're so upset all the time. And here I am like, oh, look at the flowers.
I got to tell you what I did yesterday. So yesterday I went back to Lansing again. So I filed my lawsuit. Y'all know that last week. And I went back to Lansing because the judge asked me to amend the original complaint. It was not a big deal. It was basically say that, you know, that I attest this to be true under you know, penalty of perjury, that kind of thing. Not a problem, because I said what I said, and it is true what I said in the complaint. And so I have no problem standing behind that, right? You don't duck responsibility. If you said it, you got to either say I'm sorry and go back and make it right, or stand behind your words. So I did that. And then I went to deliver this to a department, which a said individual is the recipient of the lawsuit, to let them know what was going on. Well, this person didn't come out, which I wouldn't have expected this person to do that, but the office accepts for that person. So I go in there, and this lady behind the counter is like, why are you here? Why are you here? You know, she's like, I'm serious. She's like losing it. Okay. She's kind of losing it. Why are you here? Why are you here? Are you filing a lawsuit? I'm like, I kind of already did that. I said, no, it's already filed. I said, the judge just wanted clarification on something. And so I'm just here to make sure that you guys know and have a copy of the clarification. And it took about 10-15 minutes to get deceleration to work, right? So her boss came up, and she was so angry that she was like turning red all the way neck and such. And so I just said, you know what? I'm not coming in here to yell and scream at you guys.
Did you sue her? Did you sue her personally or something? Why is she so upset?
There's somebody else there that I did. And so it was like, so I'm like, I'm not here to beat you guys up. I'm not going to yell and scream. I'm like, this entire nation has got to decelerate, and we have to work together to bring the nation back together. And you don't do that by, it's like, I'll just tell you, I'm going to go back to training horses. There's two kinds of horse trainers out there, and horses are a lot like people. So when a horse is in survival or they're afraid, and fear is the underlying driving factor for human beings as well as horses. You can get trainers that will stand over a horse with a whip and always a threat. And that horse may do it, but they are furious. And you will never have a stable horse that way unless you're standing over them with kind of a form of tyranny. And it's sad. I hate it. I don't like to say that. And I will call trainers out that do that. It's wrong on every level. Or you have the kind that come along and say, you know what? I'm going to be your friend first. And we're just going to sit and we're going to talk for a while. We're going to, I want to hear what you have to say, because clearly you have a lot to say, because the reaction is so over the top. By the time I was there, the gal that came in second sat down in a chair next to me, and we ended up having a conversation. And I said to her, I said, how can I help you? And she sat and she listened. Now, if we're reaching out across the aisle, we've got a lot of people that have seen this entire nation fall apart. They believed in something that was also a lie. They were lied to, and they're waking up to know it. Now, are we going to sit there and shove it in their faces, or are we going to say, you know what? We've all been lied to. Every single one of us has been lied to. We're all in the same boat, and we're having to figure this stuff out together, because not every person who claims to be one title or the other is a bad person. Most of them are probably just trying to get along. The ones at the top, oh, they're evil. I'm going to tell you that. But we need to have the discernment to, in my opinion, to reach out to the ones that are just trying to get along, and they've got good hearts. They're trying to do the right thing. And I think that's what President Trump did. He so checkmated Whitmer, and it was beautiful. All you got to do is look at the shame in her face. It was a walk of shame. But he also reached out with an olive branch to her supporters, and I think he did it very sophisticated. He did it professionally, and I just really was super proud of him yesterday, or the other day before, or whatever day it was.
Well, her supporters are apparently very angry with her for being there.
Yeah, they don't like the fact that she went to Trump. And more recently, when she was going to visit Trump, she was kind of buttery about him, like, oh, I have a good relationship with the president. We're going to talk about these things for Michigan, and everything's going to be glowing and sparkly fun. And here she is. I felt like she was made to be there at the press conference. She was trying to meld into that wall, like the meme with Homer Simpson in the hedge. She was trying to melt back into the wall, and he called her out. And the headlines from all the media pointed out that he said the positive things about her. But it looked like she didn't she didn't come right next to him and smile for the cameras. She and Matt Hall, who was also there, just kind of stepped forward a little bit, and he had to kind of crane his neck to the side to talk to her. But I had to look up, like, why was she here? It was the first I heard that she was going to see him. Was it Selfridge Air Force Base or Air Base? Was it Asian Carp, which he mentioned? He congratulated Matt Hall. He congratulates people sometimes, and it's like, what is he congratulating him for? Or was it the tariffs and the economy, which is what she did her speech on later? So that was interesting, but it if Michiganians want to do something about Whitmer, it also gives the appearance that Trump is not seeing the problem with her anymore. We're going to have to do it ourselves. That's one of the conclusions I came to. Like, they're going to help us. I think he is helping us. What he did that day was helping us. But he's kind of saying, here she is in the White House. She's a good person. And we're over here screaming, no, I guess we're going to have to do this ourselves. We're going to have to figure this out.
A really gutsy thing is for a person to, like a mom or a dad. And I've been saying this from the beginning. This is what a dad would do. They would quite often step back, and the kids have got to stretch their wings a little bit, for lack of a better way to put it. And I think what he's letting us do also, I think he's offering an olive branch to her supporters so that it's not a shame. He's letting them save face a little bit at the time he's kind of pummeling her nicely. Okay. Now the rest of us need to be out there and say, I'm not giving her a pass. I think I'm going to call her Shipmer if you really want to know the truth. I can't stand that woman. And what she did to this nation was criminal. It was criminal what she did. I'm not backing down on that part at all, but I'm just talking about President Trump's professionalism and sophistication. He just passed the baton to us.
Yeah.
And also now we can talk to her supporters too, and basically humble ourselves by saying, we're not better than you. We've all been lied to. All of us on every single level. If somebody tells me they haven't been lied to, I'll call them a liar to their face, because we've all been lied to over the years. There's not one of us that had this all nailed down. We had to learn that the government was lying. We had to learn about the Constitution. We had to learn how they had taken us over and that they've stolen from us and that the taxes are bad. We had to learn not to put a mask on again as a nation when somebody's trying to incite fear for their own gain, which she did.
Well, she's responsible for the death of people.
I think another thing to consider too is, what's the message that everyone is supposed to be taking away from this, and who is the target audience? Because as we have all been lied to, we are also currently still being lied to. And it remains to be seen whether it was actually Whitmer or President Trump meeting with either of them.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
In that we really don't know who all has been replaced with doubles. We don't know what is CGI.
Yeah.
We don't know who all has, there's a lot here that we don't know. We don't know who has been replaced with actors.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack here. There really is. But I guess my main point here is not taking things at face value, but thinking game theory. What's the goal? What's the end goal? The end goal is to take back our republic and have people involved so that they don't go, yay, President Trump is in. I'm going to go play a game of golf and it's all over. We've done it. We won. We get to go home. That's not the goal. The goal is to get people engaged and actually interacting with our government and doing something, not just talking and expecting someone else to do it. If we expect President Trump to do it, the guy's 80 years old. What's going to happen when something happens to us? Because none of us, our life is terminal. So who's next? And are we going to step up and honor him and the rest of the good guys have been working at this for a long time, or is it all over?
I think speaking of terminal, I wanted to say that he did the same kind of approach with Biden. There are times when Trump is vicious toward Biden, and most of the time in the last year or two, he has been really more gentle about it. Biden didn't know what he was doing, but he was talking about it as if he's innocent, like he's mentally incapacitated, and he excuses him for that reason. Like, even during the last debates that he did with him, he was like, well, This is sad to see. And that, I think, was a lot of people in the MAGA movement were like, why is he so nice to him? Why, he should be just pounding him into the sand. Well, because he wasn't talking to you. He's already got your vote. He wants to talk to the other people that need to see that Trump bad is a myth. And so that's the same kind of approach. I talked about this recently, posted about it anyway. What has he got to use with Whitmer? With Biden, he's got incapacitation. How can he do what he did with Biden with Whitmer? He can't, because she's fully in control of her as far as the show we're watching, to Ralph's point. The show is she's still in full control of all her decision making. And as far as we can see, she hasn't been making good decisions, even more of late with this budget, raising taxes to fix the roads and all that. People are still angry with her, and they haven't forgotten what she's done to our state. How can he set her aside and help us to bring truth and justice in our state when he doesn't have that excuse for her?
I think that's a really good point. And to your point, Ralph, I think it's a really good point that we need to question everything. So maybe part of the training is to have us learn to disagree with President Trump and not walk lockstep with him. Because I disagree with a lot of his appointments. I really do. But they're working kind of. So I have to believe that some of these people that have really, really bad backgrounds are actually, hey Shawn, how you doing?
Good morning.
Good morning. I think some of these people with really, really bad backgrounds are controlled. They probably have done some deals with some of them, because you can't look at what they've done and say this is necessarily somebody that I put in the good or bad, good category. But I'm going to go back to what I said the other day. You have God on one side, you got Satan on the other side. You got good and evil. It's just the way it is. There's nobody that's truly 100%, I'm going to say rarely evil and rarely 100% good. There's only one perfect and there's only one pure evil. That's just the way it is. The rest of us are kind of in the middle somewhere. And so to see people, I think a really good manager too, this is something that I've done over the years, is that I know the failings of my employees. I know what they're great at, and I know what they suck at, because there's never been one perfect employee. I don't have one. I've never had one. I'll never have one. It's unrealistic. In government, we're never going to have a person that's perfect in there, but we have to be willing and professional enough for us to get involved and talk to these people, not just yell and scream and talk and use them as our counselor. What's the productivity part of this, and what's the goal, and how are we going to right the nation? What's the goal? If you need a counselor, go get a friend, drink a couple of beers together, have a cup of coffee, whatever it is. But when we're working on a project, we have to stay focused, clearly define the goal, have actionable steps, and move in that direction with people that are agreeable or have input on where this is going for the best maximum effort and efficiency.
I have just a thought. Ralph sent a message to us this morning that basically, to summarize, it says all governments suffer a recurring problem. Power attracts pathological personalities, and that power corrupts. And if you look at every society, since we kept track of this stuff, and probably even before that, caveman societies, they always go bad from political and controlling corruption. So I think something that we're leading towards, and this could be part of the plan, is an AI-driven governance. And Tori talks about that a lot, where the AI can actually tell us before laws are passed and things like this, and rules and regulations, what are the effects going to be on our society and government and country as a whole? And maybe Trump wants everyone to see the chaos and see how bad we become and almost lost our country because of these psychopaths that have gotten into the government that don't care about us. Because even if we do have a reset and we got rid of all of them and we put in these, all new set of people, over time, it just seeps in. You can't weed them out. You can't, that they don't have something on their forehead that says that they're a psychopath. So maybe an AI governance of some sort is going to be our future, and Trump wants us to see it so that when they propose it, maybe that's why he's going to be the last president, because maybe it'll be an AI or something like that. It sounds like a good idea to me on the surface. I don't know enough about it, but that's potentially what's going on.
Denise said this morning, good morning, we are in a war and headed towards Revelations 11, and I've stopped speaking the word Elon. They want us focused on tariff while they march their legion armies towards evil.
Well, and I think something too that I see with this is that the idea of governmental stability over, I don't know, I've said this for a while, but I would much prefer something that is randomly good 50% of the time and 50% bad of the time. I would rather see that than something that is just a steady, gradual decline. Because at least in the end, it's going to even out to to the same versus always declining, and that the idea of the government stability being paramount over anything else, for me, is kind of like, it's not something to strive for necessarily. You need that give and take to be able to try out new ideas. It's the idea of safety versus freedom, and that I would rather have the freedom side of things and allow people to experiment with things to figure out if there's a better way to do things than to get so locked into, I mean, have a base set of rules for what you want to do, but don't clamp down on everything to the point of saying that the only way forward is to keep things exactly as they are, but worse every year,
And there's got to be consequences. I think that's what God does. He gives us the ability to make choices, and then there's natural consequences for our actions. Well, they seem like they've kind of taken, it seems to me like they're kind of taking the consequences away. So people aren't really learning the downside of the things that they've done to hurt other people, which is unfortunate. And so they keep going because, hey, I got away with my hand in the cookie jar this time. I'm going to do it again because I like cookies, and that sort of thing. I've got a question to ask you guys this morning, okay? And I want you all to think about it because I love you guys all. We're all friends. And, I really love the shows that I do with you guys because we're actually friends. And I love you all, and I think you're very wise, and I respect all of you very much. I'd like to talk about encouraging people in how they can approach other people with communications, and what are some of the stories that you can tell about time when you were really hurt and somebody said something that really lifted you up, and why that pulled you out of a bad situation.
I've got one story for you guys.
Awesome.
So when I worked, doing armed security at a Department of Human Services Center in Rockford, Illinois, and this place was very notorious for having a high turnover rate for armed security officers because of the violence, because of the so much negativity there. And about 2 weeks into it, I had kind of built sort of a routine, a way to control, or I should say more like do a positive manipulation on the crowd of people that were there, so we can kind of keep the peace, so I go through this routine every morning, and all the way up to that point, I felt like I had just gotten completely and utterly emotionally defeated. And so people started coming in, and I started to kind of go through my little, I have my little card, with all the things I need to say on it, to let people know what's going on. And of course, at the end, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to tolerate bullshit today. And I was like really, really upset, And there was a woman that was sitting in the front, and she had an older disabled daughter, and she raised her hand. And then she said, "Can I approach you?" And I said, "Yeah, that's fine." And she came up and she just gave me a hug. And then she patted me on the shoulder and she said, "It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay."
Yeah, you know what? And now, is that your question, Donna?
Yeah,
it's usually a little thing that someone says. It's not like a big speech, or a big sit down, with their arm around you, kumbala. It's usually just a few words, spoken words, that can change a person and their feelings.
I have a similar story that I've told before, where a man, in a church congregation, I felt very wronged by a family, and I wasn't sitting with them anymore, and was kind of keeping to myself all of a sudden. So my behavior is those of you who know me, I'm pretty sociable. And this man, I didn't know him very well. I don't even remember his name, but I still remember that moment after a service one day. I was in the back and ready to leave, and he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I'm okay." And he looked me right in the eye, and he said, "No, are you okay?" He wanted to let me know, just with that phrase. He could tell something was off. I think he had a clue, whether he heard the story or not, that he probably had a clue what was going on between me and this other group of people, especially one woman. And he wanted to make sure that I knew he cared. I didn't become friends with him. I never established a relationship with him in any way. But I remember that to this day, because he was the only one in a group of people that is supposed to be looking out for everybody, who really expressed that care. And so it's just like what Shawn said, somebody that sincerely and quietly and calmly says, "I care about you." So that was very effective for me too.
Ralph.
Well, I think this brings to mind a time that it wasn't necessarily a person's encouraging, but I had a situation a while back where I was trying to help someone with something and they were really struggling, and I was doing my best to try and help them, and they were kind of refusing help, and I was really kind of down about it and stressed about it, and I got given a pretty clear, bashed over the head message from God of basically, stop worrying about this. You think I can't fix this? That is a lack of faith on your part. And I had to apologize, because it's like, yep, you're absolutely right. This is my lack of faith in your ability to fix this, and I leave it up to God,
Those are all really amazing. And one of, sometimes correction is one of the best examples of love, was when you're doing the wrong thing or going in the wrong way, and to be open to it when somebody says it in a way that is that they care about your best good. Somebody's got some noise in the background there. Ralph, I think it's probably you. No, Shawn? Where the noise is coming from. Yep, it was Shawn, not Ralph.
I couldn't hear what you said at first, Donna.
Yeah, I said, I think that one of the biggest things in life is when someone really cares about us. I think I can still hear it, Shawn. Can you guys still hear the noise?
Yeah.
I think you have a bad connection. I think it's a connection.
It could be.
It sounds like a fan or something.
I'm going to mute you for a second, Don. So when somebody really cares about you and cares enough to correct you, I think that's the highest form of love, really. But also a person who's really wise will have the ability to just say a few good words and it changes your whole day. I remember a time, and I remember this. My kids were very little, and something happened that deeply hurt me. And that very rarely happens to me. I really kind of just plow through things and figure things out. But and I'm older now, so that's also another thing that being, let's see. Okay, you can try to unmute if you want, Shawn. But no, it's still there. We got to resolve this.
Should log out, log off, and
log off and log back in and see if that resolves it, because we can't hear with the background noise. But I think that I just kind of power through things, and I think with age comes that wisdom a little bit, and you don't take things quite as seriously, and you can look at people and go, "Huh, they're having a bad day." You just don't take things personally. But I was younger. And somebody had done something that, and I mean, it was a deeply hurting betrayal. Okay. And
one of your kids?
What's that?
From one of your children?
No, it was from somebody else. And one of my kids, I was crying, and one of my kids came and sat next to me, and a very little guy, and he was just swinging his feet. No, it's still there, Don. I gonna have to mute you because we can't hear anything with that noise on. Maybe we can figure it out. But so he was swinging his feet at the end of the bed. Finally, and he just kept looking up at me, and then he'd look back again. Then he looked back at me, and he was 3 years old. And he said, "Mom, I know how you feel." And that was all he said. And I looked at him, and at that moment in time, of course, then I was crying my head off, because I'm like, oh my gosh, he actually does know how I feel. And that's all it took to really validate my feelings. A 3-year-old swinging his feet going, "I know how you feel."
That's nice.
That short and sweet moment, yeah.
How old was your child?
3.
Such wisdom.
It was 3 years old. Yep.
It must be a smart one.
It was my
She
second.
got a lot of smart ones.
Yeah, I can tell you that my kids are all pretty intuitive, and this son is definitely a people person, and he to this day he's really super patient, and honestly loves people. And he gives people, I've learned so much from him. You know how you learn from your kids, you learn from everybody around. I'm going to tell you, I've learned a lot from him just because of his innate sense of dealing with situations too. He learned from me, but then I've also learned back from him. But that moment at 3 years old, and just was amazing. So, okay. So let's talk about communication skills and how to help people learn to communicate even when we're very, very angry with what we hear out there. How do you cope when you've heard things that are, okay, let's see.
Is that better?
No, I can still hear it a little bit, but it's a little
Not
better.
Not as bad on my side. I can't hear anything.
Yeah, sounds like a buzzing. Like, is there a print or something?
I have nothing running. I don't know if it's outside or.
Okay, it's better. We can do.
It's much better.
Yeah. So okay. So how about communications? When you see somebody who is absolutely accelerated, what do you do to calm them down and try to get them to talk again? And how do you not inflame people? I'm just throwing out there random, wide open question, and you can take this in any direction you want.
Always have a bag of marshmallows so you can stuff one in their mouth, because who can be angry with marshmallows?
I always find that that not reacting first. Number 2 is have a plan of what you want from them, what the ultimate goal should be. And then 3, always ask questions. Whenever you confront somebody or tell them they're wrong or try and get your viewpoint in front of what they think, people just dig in further and you clash. But if you ask questions, and really intelligent questions that actually truly get them to think, they will often understand your point or change their mind by asking strategic questions. And the last thing is be empathetic, because they think something or whatever they're feeling is for a reason.
I was going to pretty much say the same thing, except I have an example of that. I was at a Lansing, probably medical freedom event. No, I know. I don't remember what the event was. This was a while back when I was participating in the petition process. So I was at a booth where we had petitions for people to sign, and there was a group of opposing people who were really loud and rambunctious, and someone did just what you were describing. They approached and started very, very calmly started asking questions about why do you feel that way? Oh, that's interesting, and it shut them right down. Everybody got quiet. I was just watching from a distance, and I was like, wow, they just took that from I want to get in your face, red-faced, sweaty, angry kind of people to they were having a conversation that was reasonable. And it was like those, I've seen those events where people have a debate, where they have a sit down and they have people of opposing views and they structurally do this. But this was live and in person at a petition or a Capitol event where people were really upset and emotional on both sides, really. And to see that in action was really cool. That was exactly what you were describing. A calm approach where you don't have to yell at me. I can hear you from here. Why do you feel so passionately about the way you do? Unfortunately, I've seen people try that with some of the crowds, like the anti-Elon, anti-Tesla group, for example. And some of those people, that common sense approach doesn't get through. So
Yeah.
I don't have an answer for that.
I think that the Democrats have been taught purposely, when you go to an event, that you're going to be around people that have a different point of view, to say, we're not talking politics. So Thanksgiving is a perfect one, Christmas, dinners. I noticed that these people, they come in, especially the young ones, and they say, I don't want to talk politics tonight. No politics. So they just cut it off right there.
Well, they taught us to see people as dangerous. Go back to the masks. Our neighbors, our friends and family, they're a danger to us. And so that's where people go, is they see other people as a threat. And what I heard out of both of you on that is the fact that you gave people the chance to get this poison out of them and say it and get it out of them, but you didn't take it personally. And so that goes back to a biblical principle of not being easily offended. You're a healer. There's an awesome power of the listening heart. Shawn.
Yeah, what Dr. Davis was saying, de-escalation, that's something that a lot of people can learn, is, learn how to de-escalate yourself and learn how to de-escalate others. And that's something that has been my greatest arsenal when I've worked in the security world for years. When you're trying to kind of diffuse a situation, there's different tactics, different ways of doing it. But I found that the most effective way is, asking them a random question, something way off left field. Okay. Like, here, I'll give you a good example. So, when I had a guy one time come up and approach me, and he was saying, I don't like the Trump flags in your house and yada, 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 And I was, I looked at him, and the first thing I was doing was looking at his hands, because that's what we're always taught to train to do. Always look at the person's hands. They could have a weapon or whatever. But that day, it was like, okay, I see his hands were really worn. He's a blue collar working guy. And I just asked him a random question, and I said, well, what kind of work do you do? I see you got your hands look like leather, you work with your hands all the time. And it took him back, because he was like, okay, that's not what I was talking about. But, and it kind of threw him off track, right? It could have like a shock to his system. And then he took a step back and he said, oh, well, I do carpentry work. And I said, oh, that's great. I said, what's your favorite part about carpentry? Is it the roofs? Is it the windows? What makes you the most money? And so we got to talking, and I want to say about 20 minutes later, I ended up hiring him to fix something on my house, and yeah, and then the guy and I we ended up becoming great friends. And that's when, and of course I don't rush it, but later down the road, it was like he would ask me, he's like, why do you have Trump flags on your house? And I said, okay, this is how I do things. The world is run by businesses, by corporations, not countries with borders. It's run by businesses, right? That's why they call them
democracy.
Yeah. So, and then I said, well, you've got CEOs, and they're like the kings of the corporation. So I said, how did you know the United States is the corporation, right? And that's why I'm voting for Trump, because I don't want us to be a corporation. I want us to have sovereignty. I want us to have our liberties and our rights enshrined, rather than having some little 3-letter agencies dictating how we live our lives. And he took a step back, and he was like, whoa, man, that was wild. He's like, I never saw it that way before. And we sat and we talked for hours and hours and hours, and eventually he came around. He was like, I see your point. Now I see clearly what I couldn't see before. And I was like, well, what prompted you to come over and start screaming and yelling at me about my flag on my house and stuff? And he said, oh, my wife's a liberal, my children are liberals, we're all Democrats, But he said, I gotta tell you, I'm kind of thinking of like not becoming a Democrat no more. And I said, well, I'm an independent. I said, I vote based on who I know is best capable of being able to do the job. But I said, then again, I don't know everybody 100%. Only God does. So, that's why you got to do your own investigations, ask your hard questions, important questions. And I turned this guy into a critical thinking machine. And I swear now he's like my best friend in the world, because every time, we would get together, we would, go hunting or fishing, or we would do other things or whatever. And he sees things, and he actually has a t-shirt. He wears a t-shirt now. He says, I don't care about your opinions. I only care about the facts.
Oh, I like that. I'm going to bring a point up that you said. You first, that what you did is determine whether there was actually a threat there or not. You looked to see, and I think that's the first step, is to, is this person actually a threat, or are they just being a little crazy? What's the actual danger? So, but it requires us to have a cool head to do that. And then, coming alongside of him and becoming friends. And I think that's amazing. Ralph.
Well, I think the cool head part of it is a large part of it, in that there are so many things right now in our environment that are trying to sway people's emotions. They're not appealing to logic. They're not appealing to reason. They're appealing purely to people's emotions.
Yep.
And playing off of either trying to get people to fight, or trying to play off of people's empathy and turn their brains off. for one cause or another, and that's the only way that they can actually amass any actual perceived power is through emotions, because if you thought through their argument, it falls apart immediately. And so in a lot of cases, going into a hostile situation like that, the staying calm, take a step back, don't let them manipulate your emotions and think through it is a really important part of it. You know, I had one situation where I was dealing. I was on a board and trying to deal with a fairly contentious issue, and I've had this several times, but this is one that particularly sticks out to me. Is that this one person was trying to sway the board in a particular direction and was incredibly animated and angry, really. And I stayed pretty much calm through the whole thing and just tried to go through the reasoning behind it. And to a certain extent, it actually kind of like escalated him, because his attempts at making everyone on the board angry were clearly not working on at least some of us. But on the other hand, by the time that he got that burned out of his system, then we could actually have a decent discussion about it, because we got past that immediate emotional appeal and got down to reason. And sometimes it helps too to kind of to think about interactions as, if I was an outside entity looking at this interaction between myself and this other person, what would I do in that situation? If I was a bystander looking at this, what would I do in this situation? Not how should I respond personally, but if I was somebody else, how would I want myself to respond looking at it from outside? And sometimes that can help too, as, if I were an observer, what am I looking at as the motivation for these two sides? Not what's their argument, but what's their motivation for this?
And how are they selling it? Because the argument is how they're selling their opinion. And so you go back to who's making money off of it, what's their goal, are they trying to gain control of the situation and such?
Yeah. Well, it's like, people that are huge activists for the whole trans thing. You look at that and it's like, okay, they see themselves as trying to be compassionate, whereas the other side that's against that also sees themselves as trying to be compassionate in a different way, in that one side is like, we should accept this and let them do whatever the heck they want, and the other side is, no, we need to help them, and you have to start looking at what's the motivation behind things, and where does that come from? How are they trying to get their point across? In a lot of cases, in contentious arguments like that, both sides want the same thing. They just want it in different. They have different means of getting there, and they've never even considered that the other method of getting there might actually work better.
Well, and you brought up the trans issue, and that I was watching a video last night where a man and a woman were divorced because the mom was a doctor and wanted to transition one of her sons. The dad completely disagreed with it. And this is another thing that I think we're going to have to deal with, is that people are getting their identity by jumping onto this crazy stuff. And it wasn't about transitioning the boy. It's a deep psychological chasm of in the mom of wanting to transition her kid, that she thinks she's going to be accepted in a group. It's almost like a cult mentality. And recently I've been going into the satanic cults as far as to look into that and doing some psychological profiling on what's actually going on, and why do people go down into these cult mentalities. The political parties are no different. It's a cult. It is a cult mentality that sucks people into these groups where people will be ostracized if they speak against it. Now, Denise has put a few things out there, and she's really concerned about on the chat this morning about what she's seen with President Trump and Elon and such. I got to say, I appreciate the fact that she said it, because we have to question things, even if it's not a popular opinion in our groups, and the rest of us need to sit back and honor that and listen to it and see what she has to say, because as usual, all of us may be missing something that someone else who has the guts to say it is picking up on. And that's okay. If you listen to it, you don't have to feel threatened by it. I've been a pretty vocal President Trump supporter, and pretty patient with what he's doing. But you never know. We want to make sure that we're watching what's going on, because everybody's in the gray a little bit. And even President Trump could be getting bad information from people. And so we still need to be responsible and think about this, and not just hook, line, and sinker everything. So I appreciate your comment, Denise, a lot.
I got to go soon, but I want to add that I think all of us here are right fighters, and that becomes a problem. At least it does for me, because I tend to want to tell the truth. I want to share the truth. I want to tell somebody, no, you're wrong. And I have to find a crafty way and time and place and manner to do that. All the things that we've talked about enable that. I've learned through practice, and we've talked about this before, that, for example, in the township boards or wherever, county board, when you're trying to deliver a message with public comment, or even outside of public comment, as I've done, staying calm and saying, no, that person has the right to speak. You cannot cut them off. Here is why. I have the knowledge, and I can deliver it in a calm way, and they will listen to me. And I've had to learn through practice how to use my Toastmaster educated voice to deliver the message in a way that it kind of quiets everybody and gets them to focus on what I'm saying and how I'm saying it, rather than whether I'm right or wrong about it. So that, like Ralph just said, it's not about who's right or wrong so much as what is the common goal that we have here. We all want to be safe and comfortable. That's what we all want. We just have different approaches for it, different forms of what's best in the right or wrong avenue for that. But if we can approach it and discipline ourselves and those around us, and that's the tricky part too, because I've been in like the school boards when that was really hot. You meet with people outside and you say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to stay calm. And if there's that one joker who wants to create a problem, then you have a couple of guys approach that person and say, this is not how we're doing it today, because we have a goal, and is to do it with peace.
Well, like on
but telling the truth is important.
That board meeting that I was at, where I just stayed calm, the guy that was trying to rile up the group, it ended up actually, it brought him to tears, because his efforts to try and rile everybody up were not working, and the staying calm and talking through things actually, was productive, but it was not what he wanted out of that meeting. And it brought him to tears, but okay, that's fine. That's not going to sway me either, in that I can still be friends with you afterward regardless, and or I can not be friends with you and I can agree with you. It doesn't change things, but one way or another, we can still be civil with each other.
I've done conflict mediation professionally for many years, and one of the things that I employ when somebody gets on the crazy train a little bit is, and I, I've had that quite a bit because I've been in conflict mediation, and somebody will be going off and getting really, hostile. First thing I'm like, wow, it just really brightens my day to see that you actually care so much about this issue, because so many people are apathetic. Stops them dead in their tracks almost every time.
We find a common ground, like Ralph was saying earlier. What is it that we really want out of this? When you find something positive about that person, or what they're trying to say and accomplish, and let them know that you hear them, because that's a big part. But with this, like, Trump derangement syndrome, as we like to call it, maybe that's like saying pure blood. Maybe we shouldn't use that term either. Some of these techniques may not work so well, and you may just get to a point where you're just, I'm sorry, I just have to walk away, because we can't converse like this.
Well, and two, if somebody comes at you with a differing political opinion like that, you can always say, well, I'm glad we agree on clearly we agree on a couple of things. One is the freedom of speech, freedom of association, and that you're able to express your opinion of how much you dislike mine. And that's really important, that we can express that dislike of each other's opinions freely to each other without being squelched by an outside entity. And
I've seen that totally happen.
And then also I see you also think that, diversity is our strength, and that we have diverse opinions on the subject, and they're not all the same exact blended together homogeneous opinion. We have differing opinions on it, and we're still able to talk about it.
One of the things in the political realm that really strikes me is how many people want. Now, I love talking to people, and I have an open door to people, but the communication, I mean, you guys all know that I actually pick my phone up, and I've given my phone out to thousands and thousands of people. But a lot of times people want to use other people as their counselor or therapist, and nothing gets done. So you'll listen to somebody call up and they just want to off their stress on you, but there's no solutions. There's nothing. And I mean, I've had people literally, and I try to be really polite. I really try to be polite, and I'll listen to a monologue, and it really is of just, hate for the situation and this, but they just need somebody to talk to. And it'll go, I've listened to people for an hour and a half or more. And it becomes kind of almost abusive at that point in time. Nothing's getting accomplished, and they're literally just sucking the energy out of everything in the room. And it really becomes a problem, because you're not hitting a goal, and you try to be polite, you try to listen to them. But think about this, running for governor, and I mean, think about President Trump or General Flynn. This is why I don't pester these guys, because these guys are interacting with actual teams that are doing things. I will not senselessly waste their time just because I want to have my time with them and want to talk to them because I love them. I won't do it. When you've got 11 million people in the state of Michigan, and somebody wants to sit there and talk to the governor for hours, and I mean, this is even witless, okay? The way we communicate has got to change politically. We have to actually do things that are significant instead of just sitting there talking, because it's a waste of time. It really is. And I love talking to people. That's not it. But our time right now, we're losing our country, and it's got to get productive, and it's got to get productive fast. So when I think that going forward, to look at that better way to communicate to our elected officials, people have to be willing, like, I'm just going to say, to write notices, to instruct, to stop venting, to go into actionable steps. That's not just a politician, it's us. Because it is absolutely insanity to think that one person in that office can solve all the problems by sitting down and having a discussion. it can happen. But I think there's better ways of doing it, and probably sitting down, thinking out what we want to say, and putting it in actionable steps so that perhaps a team of people can work on those issues and not just go to somebody to listen to because we're frustrated. It doesn't accomplish enough. And so I think that that's another thing that we need to work on politically, as far as for the structure that's broken within our country.
One thing I've always learned throughout history is this: it's always the people who it's always the people who are always the ones that are leading the change or leading the effort or whatever. It's the politicians are. I like to think of it this way. So whether you got a president or whether you got a governor, all they are is just nothing more than accountants, right? So they don't really produce anything, right? They're kind of like the middleman. They're like the brokers. They're trying to bring businesses into the country, or they're trying to drive businesses out of the country, right? So what it comes down to, it's like, what are we doing to affect change, positive change in our country? And that's something that I'm currently working on right now, with a business partner, with trying to solve the energy crisis. There's always an energy crisis. And the reason being is because we're still on the 1913 electric grid, and it's just not working. And there's so many security problems with that, number one. But we're trying to get it so that every house is independent. It's got its own unit that generates electricity. So where you're not hooked to the grid, you're not have to worry about some hacker shutting off your electricity, or some company overreaching and charging you, $400 or $500 a month for electricity because.
Can I pause you just a second, Shawn? I'm sorry. Karen, I know you've got to leave and you said you have to go. So thank you for being on today. And I hope you have a really great weekend, and we care.
Thank you. I love you guys.
Love you too. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, please continue, Shawn.
So I always, if you go back and take a look at history, okay, how about this? Ford, when Ford was first building cars, one of the first things he had to do was make sure that he had enough money that he could be able to do this. Okay. So one of the things that he did was he sat down with his employees and said, how can we mainline the process of being able to build these cars faster, but still have the quality cars put out there? And so they came up with the concept of the conveyor belt line, which now has been used by every corporation throughout the whole entire world, right? So that one man changed the entire industry, okay? And we can be, if we the people were to come together and put our heads together and try to put this, like you said, in an actionable way that's going to be productive and positive for everybody. This is where, the president, they could be the inspiration behind all that, or they could be the opposite, right? But regardless of whatever they're doing, we have to constantly be on the forefront of, innovation, of change, of positivity and connectivity, and just bringing people together. And I think what had happened was that we kind of we put way too much trust into the government over the years. And what had happened was we gave them free reign to do whatever they wanted. And so over the last, 80, 90 years, they've been constantly adding more and more branches within the executive branch, all these 3-letter agencies. And then they decided, okay, we're going to create this Chevron difference. So we're going to make these rules. And that's where it kind of bit us in the ass, And so now we're in the position where we don't have that Chevron difference anymore. They're just reducing the executive branch of all these agencies, right? We have to trust the person that we elected, but we have to do our part too. We have to be active and trying to bring this country back together, because it's not just a one-man job. This takes all of us. It takes us, a community, right? It takes a village to raise a child, and now that people are awake and they're kind of like, okay, we're not sleeping no more. But I think a lot of that stems also too from government overreach, where they've been using the MK Ultra on the public, which involves drugs like fluoride sodium that they're putting into the water systems, right? And then what that does is this makes people compliant, non-resistant in many ways. But they've been employing like a lot of psychological warfare on American citizens, especially in the last 4 years. And what they didn't, I don't think what they anticipated was that the level of resistance that was going to come out of it. And I'm glad it did, because I'm glad people started asking questions, disagreeing with just the idea of total compliance, and it's good to ask questions, it's good to do things, challenge the status quo. But at the same time, we need to be more on a personal level with other people, is, take the time to find that common ground. And I think seeking the common ground is the solution to a lot of the problems that we have today.
Yeah, I agree with that. Is that we've got to come together with actionable steps. That you couldn't run a company or anything without that. You have to have kind of a plan, and I'm really seeing kind of like zero leadership at the state level, zero anywhere. There's no plan. It's total chaos. And I'm watching the governor's race here in the state of Michigan. Kind of interesting to me, really. And what I'm seeing there is, and how it's playing out. So I'm the chairman of the Constitution Party in Michigan, which is termed the U.S. Taxpayers Party, but we are actually the Michigan affiliate of the Constitution Party here, and that's due to actions by the Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson to refuse to do the will of the people. But we are the Constitution Party. And what's really interesting is that nobody runs for an office. And I like that, because if somebody wants the office, they should be immediately disqualified. Immediately. And because there's a reason behind that. We need to change the way that the party system is indoctrinated in us into following like a bunch of sheeple. It has to change, and it's got to change by us fundamentally, by saying, you know what, I'm not going to participate in an organization, both the Republican and the Democrat parties, who have taken dark money and PAC money, who have absolutely turned themselves into a threat, both a domestic and a foreign threat, because they are being controlled by the corporatocracy. And refusing to go along with that, and being strong enough to say, you know what, I am going to do what's right and let God take this, and he's going to direct the outcome of it. But I'm not going to cower in the corner and say, whatever will happen to us, we can't get off the farm here. What's going to happen if we get off the Republican or the Democrat parties? What if we start thinking for ourselves and have to take responsibility for it? I just really believe that most of these candidates that come forward, and I won by losing, I was the only one that was not put up necessarily to it by a political entity or somebody that was in charge. I was asked by a very, very, very small group of patriots. And that's the reality of it. And so I won by losing, by seeing exactly what they do. These parties have got to end, because they're a cult mentality. And I can lay out why they act like a cult. If you don't go along with them, you're ostracized. You're off the island. They vote you off the island. If you're controllable, you get the pass to the next level. But they never, ever, and they will never, ever, ever embrace someone who is an American It's only the people that further their interests, and their interests are self-enrichment.
This is a really good topic because, I've been doing a lot of research for about this kind of situation. When Trump was talking about the golden age, one of the biggest things that about the golden age was, this was in Greece and Rome, but they allowed downturn voting every single year. And here's what they found is that with the more downturn voting that there is, there's less parties. It's more like
Downturn voting. Explain that.
okay, so downturn voting is like this. Okay, so in Rome, when they established the Golden Age, so year one they would have the regular voting system, which is you vote people in, right? Okay, so at the time they had 2,500 senators, 2,500 positions. So they would vote for who they wanted into the position. Well, then year two they would give the citizens a vote to do a downturn voting. That means you get to vote on who you think shouldn't be in office anymore. And so if that person receives 60% of the votes, they would have to vacate that office and that position within noon the next day.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I've not been aware of that, but that is a fantastic idea.
Yeah, and they would do this year 3, year 4, and they would just continue this. So every 4 years they would do a vote in, but every year after that they would do a vote out. And what this does is eliminates the parties, number one. Number two, it kind of really discourages anybody from wanting to become a career politician, right? You can't just get you're going to go into it with the idea that I'm going to get rich, right? Number three, it gives the people the power to be able to control their own government, not the government controlling the people. And so if that person gets, that 60% and that seat is vacant, it stays vacant. Okay, it completely stays vacant. So until the next, 4-year cycle. And what they have found was they went from 2,500 Senate positions, and by year 3 they were down to 150 senators, only 150, and those 150 were able to manage the government like accountants, because they don't produce anything, they just simply do the will of the wish of the people, right? And they were able to save money. They spent a whole lot less money. They were putting whatever money that the citizens were being, all the money they got from tariffs, all that money went back into their society, the society as a whole, like the infrastructure. The cost of living was so small that people were able to make almost 1,000 times more in wages compared to what they were actually paying out for, buying food, groceries, for travel, whatever. So their cost of living was so low that they didn't have to worry about, where do I go, can I afford a gallon of milk, tomorrow? How am I going to be able to make my electric bill? They didn't have that.
Rome, right?
Yeah, this was in Rome. This also happened in Greece as well. And this has happened in, I think, 5 different civilizations. So they did downturn voting. And what this did was it created a constant turnover of politicians. And people in general themselves, they didn't want to be a politician because that's not a job that you're gonna keep for decades or years or whatever. Everybody pays in Social Security. If you become a politician, you don't get special privileges. The only privilege you get is to be able to represent your people and vote on the issues. That's it.
I love this. I absolutely love this. And this goes back to the fact that I think we need a part-time legislature, and I think we need to pay them like like you would for jury duty, so that you only get paid when you show up. And I'm sorry, but politicians should not have, these insurances, cradle to grave insurance, and all of these other benefits that they have when the rest of us don't get that. We have busted deal to support these parasites. Are you kidding me?
Yep.
Well, I think too, another thing that needs to go along with that is we really need that Citizens United decision reversed so that we don't have all of the big that's one of the big things that enabled a lot of the PACs that then also enable foreign money flowing in to influence our politicians. Is
corporatocracy.
A lot of it comes down to that Citizens United decision, and that whole case decision needs to be revisited so we can start bringing the representation back to the American people again.
I love that. Thank you. Well, guys, this is a fantastic point to stop the broadcast today, I think. And I've got a few things I need to get done today. I know everybody else here has a busy day too. So, but man, what a great show. You guys are amazing. I love listening to what's on your mind. It's fantastic. Think about what we want to talk about next week. Okay. I'm absolutely serious. And anybody else out there, you know how to get a hold of me. I put my phone number out there. You can always call or text 616-430-4410. If I can't pick up, I will, or I'll text you. I actually like text messaging best because then I've got a record so I don't forget, because there's like a lot of you out there and I want to do it in a professional way that I can actually respond. So, but if you got ideas, just text me. Or go, get on Telegram or X and reach out to me there too. I mean, that's an easy way to get a hold of me. So, but anyhow, I'm going to say a prayer and then I'd like to have last words from you guys. Okay.
Okay.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the wonderful time that we're living in. And it's just such an encouragement to see you leading us out of it, the captivity we had. There's so many times in the Bible that people were led out of captivity to an evil system or to bondage to things that worked against them. And unfortunately, we're self-destructive. That's part of the fall. We will follow things that make us comfortable, which isn't always the best way. We're not asking for comfort. We're not asking for an easy path. We're asking for you to lead us down the path, strengthen us, and carry us on whatever path it is that you have set before us. And we trust you. We love you. We don't even have to know what the outcome is going to be because we know you control that. And we can rest in the fact that you're good all the time. We love you. You've been so gracious to us and so good. We ask that you pick up those that are hurting, that are afraid, and give them your peace that passes understanding, your comfort, the ability to turn to you and walk with you and know that they've got an open door. They can come directly to you. Jesus rent the veil in two in the temple when he said, "It is finished. It is finished." And we can come to you and be your friend. You've been a wonderful friend to us, and we want to be a friend to you. We love you so very, very much, and we're thankful for everything that you've done for us. In Jesus' precious name we pray, amen. Okay, around the room here. Let's start with Shawn, David, and Ralph. What you got to say?
Okay. Well, I think this has been a really great show today. I think self-sufficiency, it should be the number one thing for everybody. Learning how to be self-sufficient, then you can be able to help other people. But without knowing how to be self-sufficient, I think that's been a big problem that this country has, is we've been so codependent upon other people to do things for us, and that promotes laziness in us. So, but other than that, I just wanted to give a shout out that I actually have a new music track out there. If anybody wants to listen to it, it's on any music app that's out there. Just punch in my name, and I have a lot of patriotic songs on there as well. So,
do you have a place where they can find you? Because what I'll do is I'll create a banner here a minute, and then they can go. Where can they go find that?
You can go on Spotify, iTunes, all the major apps, all the major music apps that are out there. Anyone, you can just go there, whichever one you listen to, just punch in my name and my music. There's a list of music that I have that's been released. You can listen to any one of those.
Okay. Watch this. I'm playing with new toys here. See if I can get this right. Tell me, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. This is how we support each other, guys. You give each other a shout out when you can. So, David.
Well, I don't have any words of wisdom, parting words of wisdom, but I do want to thank you, Donna, for all your hard work. I've never seen anybody work so hard at something for so long. I mean, I think we met, I mean, how many years ago has it been? But I know every single day, and it seems like every hour of every day, you're fighting for everybody, everybody on all sides in every state. And it's pretty incredible to watch you and know what you're doing. So I just want to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor to be your friend. It really is. I just love you, your beautiful wife, Jeannie, and your dad. I mean, Michael is just adorable. Okay, one of these days we got to get Michael on here. And I think Michael needs to come on. That would be totally amazing.
Yeah, that would be.
Ralph, what you got to say?
Oh, I guess just, peace and calm and calculated, logical thinking a lot of times can be some of the most healing things for people that are willing to listen, and the most infuriating for the people who are trying to divide us. If they're trying to divide us and you don't let them, oh man, some of those people end up just going absolutely ballistic, but they show their true colors. And it also helps unite all of the people around you.
I love it. So thank you guys so very much. And with that said, it's that time, boys and girls, to go to BrandenburgForGovernor.com, my 2022 protest, and maybe more, we'll see. Go to BrandenburgForGovernor.com because I'm the best non-conceder who's ever not conceded in the history of the world. And I would like to have a discussion with the rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, in cowboy boots, and we're going to see who wears them better. I guess it's me. But, I've got the cards stacked in my favor with that one. So have a great weekend. I'll be back next week, probably Tuesday. Maybe Monday. Maybe I'll be on Monday. Check out my Telegram channel at BrandenburgForMI or X account, Twitter. And I'll let you know what's going on. But I'll be back next week, and I think we're going to have a pretty full week next week. I'm kind of excited about it, and lots going on. Keep your powder dry. Make sure that that we're all tracking in the same thing, because remember, we're Americans second. We're children of God first. And you know what? We follow God. We come and stand beside people, bringing peace to the crazy situations, peace in the storm, and be that example. And I think what everybody here said this morning was live in the present and watch the people around you. And when you see stress, just an easy word, I know how you feel, or it's going to be okay, can change the entire situation, an entire day for someone. And I love you guys all. I'm proud of all of you. I'm proud to stand with you all. And have a great day. God bless you all. God bless all those whom you love. God bless America. We'll see you next week.